Hello everyone, welcome to Brain Blitz Audios. Today, in this episode of Weekly News Flash, we have a very important piece of news to share with you. Now, this particular segment is about preparation for basically the current affairs section of the Public Service Commission tests. So the civil service examinations would require you to be fluent in current affairs, and so therefore this video is devoted to that. Today's story is from the 12th to the 18th of June 2022, and it talks about Chancellor Conundrum, states replacing governors with the Chief Minister. So let's look at what triggered this piece of news. The Hindu posted an article on June the 13th, 2022, and it says the West Bengal Assembly passed a bill to replace governor with chief minister as the chancellor of state universities. So this is a screenshot from the Hindu itself. So the development is that the government of West Bengal has decided to make the chief minister the chancellor of state universities, replacing the governor who used to be traditionally the chancellor for such universities. So we would also need, now this is a development that has happened in multiple states across India and not just West Bengal. So let's look at developments in most of the states that have this sort of rule. The West Bengal cabinet, in addition to removing the governor as chancellor, they also approved removing the governor as visitor to private universities. So the governor has suffered a blow in his statutory offices, so he's no longer the visitor to private universities, and is no longer the chancellor of state-run universities. Now let's look at another state. In Tamil Nadu, the legislation was passed to make the chief minister the chancellor of state-run universities instead of governor. Now, due to this rule, the state government is now empowered to appoint vice-chancellors to these universities instead of the governor. So the governor was supposed to do this. However, now, because of the change in chancellorship, the state government is now empowered to appoint these people. In Rajasthan, in North India, the government is planning to bring in legislation allowing the CM to appoint chancellors to 28 state-funded universities. So in this state, chancellors are appointed by the CM, but they are not the chief minister. They're not taken by the chief minister himself. The governor, who will now be a visitor, will be replaced. So the governor was the chancellor in these universities, but now he will be confined to being a visitor. In the state of Kerala, however, the governor himself is requesting the chief minister to take over the chancellor's role. This is due to alleged political interference in functioning universities in Kerala. So therefore, the governor himself is asking the chief minister and his cabinet to take over the role. Now, how did we get the practice of the governor of the state becoming the chancellor of state-run universities? It turns out appointing governors as ex officio chancellors dates all the way before independence. It dates all the way back to the Woods Dispatch of 1854, which was propounded by Sir Charles Woods right here. The Woods Dispatch enabled the establishment of Indian universities, and the model that the British chose in order to establish these universities was based on the London University model. And based on this model, 3 universities were established in 1857. Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay each got a university. Now, when it came to appointing the chancellor, Calcutta University had the Governor-General of British India himself as their chancellor, while the chancellors of Bombay University and Madras University was the respective governors of these presidencies. Now, since we are no longer under British rule, why is this still prevalent? Well, post-independence, state universities established by the state governments unequivocally made the governor the ex officio chancellor. So the state governments decided to continue the practice of the governor holding the chancellor's office. Now, the reason, the original intent for this particular circumstance was the fact that the state governments wanted to insulate universities from regional politics. So therefore, appointing the governor, who is a non-political, who does not have any political power of his own, as the chancellor, would make sure that there is very little politics creeping into universities. However, there are some legal scruples when it comes to appointing the governor as the ex officio chancellor. First of all, Article 163(1) of the Indian Constitution. It says that the governor is bound to act on the advice and aid of the Council of Ministers, headed by the Chief Minister, in order to discharge his functions. And since we consider him being the Chancellor of State Universities as one of his functions, he is bound to act on the advice of the Council of Ministers. So, this particular article indicates that the governor's discretions, which includes the chancellorship of universities, is limited by the Constitution of India. Now, this raises the question whether the governors can hold a de jure office, such as Chancellor of Universities, without the Constitution conferring any privilege of the sort. So it's not written in the Constitution that the governor should be the Chancellor of State and Universities, and so therefore, is it possible for the governors to take an office as such, even when the Constitution does not say so? Now, this question has become relevant in recent years because of appointments of vice-chancellors, particularly in West Bengal and Tamil Nadu. Now, in both of these states, vice-chancellors were appointed to state universities, and there has been resentment in these states regarding those appointments. Some say that they were politically motivated, others say that they were nepotistic, and so on. Now, when it comes to holding the governor as chancellor, there has been various legal proceedings against this, and various judgments have been pronounced on the issue. Now let's look at some of these rulings by the Judiciary of India. The first case that comes to mind is the Hardwari Lal versus G.D. Tapase case. This was undertaken by the High Court of Punjab in Haryana. Now, their verdict was the governor has independent existence as the Chancellor of State and Universities. Their reasoning was that the office of Chancellor is statutory and is distinct from his constitutional office. So according to this High Court, the office of Chancellor and the constitutional office of Governor are two very different offices. The Governor doesn't have to be removed from the Chancellors because that office is separate from his constitutional office. Now, of course, the case hasn't been finished yet because this has to do with various states, so therefore there was another state that brought a similar case to the Supreme Court of India. This was Burinath versus the state of J&K, which is Jammu and Kashmir of old. Now, in this case, the Supreme Court of India affirmed the earlier ruling by the Punjab High Court. Now, they say that when the governors are entrusted with powers delivered from statutes in an official capacity, they do not need to act on the advice of the Council of Ministers. So I guess that was the case. So in this case, the plaintiff argued that the governor needs to take, the governor needs to take the advice of the Council of Ministers, but the Supreme Court says that since the office is a statutory one, they don't need to act on the advice of the Council. Now, this was the judgment of the Supreme Court. However, in recent years, there's been a couple of legal commissions which has suggested otherwise. The first of all is the Sarkaria Commission. Now, this commission was of the opinion that the Chancellor is not obliged to seek the government's advice. So, the Chancellor doesn't need to seek advice of the government in running the universities. However, they were of the view that there is an advantage in consultation with the CM, the Chief Minister, or the concerned ministers. So therefore, they recommended the Chancellor to act on the advice of the CM or the ministers. Now, another commission, the Punchi Commission, took a radical departure from the High Court and Supreme Court's ruling. They were of the opinion that the ministers of states are naturally interested in regulating university education. Now, this leads to a clash of functions and powers if the Chancellor's office is held by the governor. So therefore, they recommended the removal of governor as Chancellor, and this has been what was happening in states such as West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, as well as Kerala. Now, since the Chancellor's office is being hotly contested in various states, it's a good idea to know what is the role of a chancellor in a state-run university. So, what is the role of a chancellor? The chancellor, his main role is to preside over convocations of state universities. So he awards the certificates to graduates. Another important role of the chancellor is to appoint the vice-chancellor, or VC, of state universities. Now, this is done from a recommended panel of names by a selection and search committee after consulting the state government. So, since the chancellor's office used to be held by the governor, he would not be involved in the day-to-day running of the university. Those were left up to vice-chancellors. And he appoints them from a recommended panel of names from the selection committee of a university, and then he consults the state government regarding the appointment. The chancellor also has the right to cause inspections to state universities, their buildings, and their other facilities such as labs and libraries, as well as museums run by them. Now, once these inspections are conducted, he sends results of these inspections to vice-chancellors, who will communicate his views to the syndicates of these universities and advises actions to be taken regarding the inspections. Now, these syndicates report to the chancellor himself on any actions to be taken or proposed based on the results. So, as you can see, it's a policy of consultation with the syndicate, the governor, who was the chancellor, as well as the vice-chancellor of the university. Of course, that's not all. We have other roles of the chancellor. The chancellor also has the right to cause an inquiry on university matters. And once he causes the inquiry to take place, he advises the universities on actions to be taken on these inquiries and fixes deadlines for these actions. So, for example, if he feels that this degree does not suit the university, he will order an inquiry onto it, and once their findings are submitted to him, he tells the university's departments, such as the syndicates and the vice-chancellor, on actions to be taken and by what time. Now, the chancellor's office, by virtue of his office, the chancellor also is the president of the Senate in the university. He has the power to transfer personnel, instructors, or assets between and inside universities. So since multiple universities have a single chancellor, he has the power to transfer, professors or assets from one university to another, and even inside the university from one department to another. So this is one of the sole powers of the chancellor. The chancellor also has the power to issue direction of academic or administrative interest to universities as and when the governor deems fit, as when the chancellor deems fit. So therefore, he has the power to direct the academic and administrative energies of the university. So that concludes this episode of Weekly News Flash. We hope you found this episode interesting. For more of our useful and interesting content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Brain Blitz Audios. If you want to get the latest updates, please don't forget to hit the notifications icon present below the video. So until the next webisode, take care, stay safe, bye-bye for now.